Welcome to another episode of Curious Careers. I'm the Corporate Relationship Manager here at Cass Business School. I'm David Huff, and I'm really excited today to welcome Emma from Bloomberg to the series. How are you, Emma?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks a lot for joining us today. Really excited to learn a lot about Bloomberg and learn what you do at Bloomberg and get some advice for our Cass community. I'll dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So obviously you're working at Bloomberg, but give us just a brief introduction to your background, if that's okay.
Sure. So I've been at Bloomberg for 14 and a half years. And I started off actually doing the graduate program. So that meant that I was in analytics, which is one of the department that I work in now. I then moved through to sales, where I was for a number of years, and then an opportunity came up about 10 years ago to move to analytics as a leader. And that was something that I was interested in doing at the time. I wanted to take a slightly different direction to kind of staying in sales for longer. And so I moved to analytics. They were interested in having people with a sales background who'd got that experience. And I've been there ever since, which wasn't necessarily the plan. But what I have been able to do during that time is gain quite a wide range of experience. So I was regional manager for 3 years in Europe. I came back from having a baby, and I decided to work flexibly. Yeah. So I now work 4 days a week, but through doing that, I managed like different smaller divisions within the department. So okay. I managed the trade desks for a while, and currently over the last 2 years, I manage the advanced specialist group.
Wow, excellent. So you must like it if you've been in that particular team for 10 years. That's crazy. Tell us a little bit about, what it is, if we can get into the nitty gritty of what it is that your team does on the analytics side. What is it you guys do?
Yeah. So, I mean, analytics in general is essentially client support, but I always think when you call it client support, you really kind of undersell what the people in my group really do. So they're people that have kind of come to Bloomberg with an aim to go to sales in the vast majority of cases. Okay. But for those individuals, they choose to stay for longer in analytics to service our customers from a support perspective. And they might develop their knowledge in a particular asset class or area of the product. So under my team, I've got 2 equity advanced teams, 2 fixed income advanced teams, a commodity advanced team, and then a derivatives application specialist team, yeah. And then a data analytics team. And so what those guys do, some of them might stay in analytics for quite a long time. Some of them may go into kind of specialist support roles or different roles within the organisation. But a lot of them will choose to go through to sales at some point in their career, but with that additional knowledge. Yeah. And they are the final point of, in terms of what they do on a day-to-day basis in my group, is they're the final point of escalation for clients. So if a client has a really tricky question on, how to price a certain exotic derivative or something like maybe how to kind of come up with like a bespoke solution in Excel using one of our API languages, then it will be the final point of call will probably be someone in my group.
Excellent. So it feels like people can really get that specialist knowledge from being part of your group to be able to really help the customers do their business better. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I have to ask, Bloomberg, obviously a massive company in financial services. Do you need to have a financial background to join Bloomberg? Is that what you guys look for in a new starter, a new candidate?
Yeah, so we and probably you guys are gonna hear from Marina as well, who focuses on our recruitment side. But We have a number of competencies that we kind of evaluate people on through the interview process. And one of those is financial interest. And we're really clear that we look at financial interest rather than financial knowledge. Look, I have an expectation if someone comes to me with a master's in finance, or maybe has worked in a bank for a couple of years, which we do get those kind of candidates coming through to us, then of course I have an expectation that their knowledge of finance is going to be pretty decent. But equally, you might get people who don't have that background, but they're just really interested and engaged and want to learn more. And so for them, I'm not going to be asking them about for them to kind of come up with kind of calculation models for complex derivatives. What I'm going to be asking them is, what their interest in finance looks like, how they keep up with their financial knowledge, and maybe for an area that they feel comfortable with, for them to explain that to me, and kind of help me understand where that comes from.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly fair, really, because if you're going to go for a massive organization like Bloomberg, you're going to have to really know your finance stuff. So you'd have to have that interest. So it's really a key area to make sure you read up on
Yeah.
before the interview. Makes
Well, yeah,
sense.
I think, look, the thing to bear in mind is that we're dealing with financial professionals every day, with an aim that you will be kind of selling solutions to financial professionals. And if you're not engaged in that, and you're not curious to kind of understand it and learn more, then you're probably not going to enjoy the job that much. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that really brings me on to the culture at Bloomberg. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture? It seems like there's a lot of different streams of activity. Seems like it's all about learning and actually improving. But tell us a little bit more about what it's like in Bloomberg, please.
Yeah, I think, look, one of the reasons why I've been kind of engaged to stay in analytics, and probably the company for such a long time, is, yeah, I think there's that focus on development, in analytics, which I think is really great. I think the people in my group are kind of inspire me every day, where they're so passionate about learning about their particular area and developing themselves in their particular area, and that's very exciting for me. I
That's
think,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and I think, but also I think the other thing that's important is it's not just learning for learning's sake. It's learning with a view to do something in our organisation that is going to it's going to benefit the organisation. It's about trying to transition people from that kind of university mindset, I guess, to that commercial mindset about, right, I'm doing this for a business purpose, right? And so I think in terms of the culture, that's one, that focus on self-development, but that focus on commercial awareness is something that's kind of really important. In terms of the rest of the kind of the other pieces of culture that I think are, I guess, ingrained within Bloomberg,
Yeah.
is you hear people talk about us being very collaborative. Look, I've never really, I've worked in other places for kind of short stints, but this has obviously been my career has been in the same organisation, so I haven't got a massive frame of reference. But I know people that come to Bloomberg who have had that experience elsewhere do appreciate the fact that we do try to develop or embody this very kind of collaborative, open culture where people feel comfortable, and I try to instill that in my group. People feel comfortable coming to me with things that are working, but the things that aren't working, and we try to kind of change things up, and I kind of try to instill with my team leaders like the trust to get people to kind of give things a go, and
Excellent.
develop the way that we work as an organization.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, because that means that you end up growing as an organization and improving, and it doesn't become a case of this is how we do things here.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to actually be more solution focused. I think sounds like a fantastic place to work. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what skills you look for in a Bloomberg employee?
Yeah, so look, I talked about the financial interest and that curiosity to learn, and I think if you're someone who's able to demonstrate that through the interview process, then that's important to me for sure. But I think, look, the skills that I think when I look at the people who've been in my groups over the years, who've kind of been able to really thrive in the organisation, it's generally people who have really really great communication skills, and I think it's a very broad thing to say, but I think it's people who have the kind of confidence and presence to kind of show up well in front of customers. They're people who kind of get on with people and develop those relationships both externally but also internally, because in many organizations, but I think in Bloomberg particularly, reputation is everything, right? And so I think people who are able to kind of develop that network within the organization tend to put themselves in quite a strong position. But look, the ability, the hard work and aptitude to develop knowledge in particular areas is also very important. We're a complex product, so I think people, even if you don't start with that knowledge, and I've seen this many times, people maybe don't have a finance background, but they have that aptitude to really and curiosity to develop their knowledge in a particular area, tend to do well in a more complex financial environment.
Excellent. Just to kind of frame that as well for our current students and probably prospective students, while you're at Cass Business School, curiosity is a key thing. That's why this series is called Curious Careers. Also, you'll have the opportunity to do a number of workshops on communication skills and networking ability so that you can hopefully hit the ground running when you get into an organization like Bloomberg. Is there anything, Emma, that when you're interviewing someone or you're talking to someone that you might point out and say that's the if factor that makes them a Bloomberg employee? Is there anything that we might be able to focus in on that you think that's definitely someone I want to work with?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this before, and perhaps it's frustrating thing for me to say, because it's not necessarily to say, if this person ticks that box, then I know I'm going to hire them. But I think, essentially we're hiring for a client-facing sales organization, right? And essentially, things might change in 50 years' time, but people buy from people, right? And if I come out of that interview feeling like the person that I've met has really engaged me, I have kind of examples and anecdotes from them that are meaningful, that really stuck with me, and I've interviewed people where I remember kind of anecdotes for years. In terms of the examples and the reasons for their motivation. I think if people are able to kind of bring me along with them, that really helps me to understand, right, this is someone who I would want to spend an hour of my time with. And so I imagine a client also would. And so it's that presence, it's those communication skills, and that ability to really engage with someone particularly around those things that we find most important, around motivations for working in a client-facing organization.
Yeah, I loved what you said there about people buy from people. It's so true, so thank you for that. I think that's, a big thing that we need to think about as an if factor. I couldn't get through this interview without mentioning COVID-19. How have Bloomberg and yourself, because you manage quite a large team, been able to continue having a positive impact for your clients during COVID-19, and how have you been able to lead your team and your organization through this challenging time?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're pretty fortunate that Bloomberg has, continues to be successful throughout this period. And I feel I feel immensely fortunate to be part of an organisation where that's the case. But I think, it's really important as we transition, and it's something that I think is instilled in Bloomberg employees. Certainly, it's one of the things we look to hire for. We look to hire for people who've got a hard work ethic, but also, it's so important that we don't rest on our laurels, right? So even though it was quite a challenging time to go from wholesale everybody in the office to wholesale everybody at home within a matter of weeks, we really wanted to make sure that our customer service and our customer engagement remained strong and consistent. And so, yeah, we have the technology, even though we are, like I would say, more of an in-office culture, because of that kind of collaborative element that we talked about. Because of the technology that we have in place, we were able to transition quite seamlessly to work from home, which was really great to see. But yeah, we have our expectation for our employees is that we continue to operate at the same level as we would do if we were in the office. And that yes, that is a challenge. It's more challenging to kind of get hold of clients than it was, because a lot of them are working from home as well. But we're looking at ways to adapt to make that process easier. But our expectations of excellence don't change. But in terms of how we engage with individuals in our group, we've tried to, we obviously have kind of video conferencing, so we try to engage with our teams very frequently, so they feel like we try to emulate where possible that kind of in-office culture, that kind of the popping to the desk, you obviously can't do in the same way, but you do have to be thoughtful about how do we make sure that we continue to communicate fairly consistently with individuals in the group.
Excellent. I think that's really key, isn't it? While working from home, that no one gets isolated, that everyone still communicates with each other. Fantastic. Last question before I let you go. What career advice would you give someone who's possibly listening to this interview and they've said, I'm a good communicator, I'm a people's person, I'm thinking Bloomberg is the place for me, love the financial service market. What advice would you give them to start taking those steps to become part of the Bloomberg team?
Yeah, I think, look, getting if you are able to get experience in a client-facing environment, then that is really helpful. I think a lot of people come with internships and stuff, but it doesn't have to be an internship in a financial services institution. From my example, I worked in retail for kind of 6-7 years through university as a part-time job. I always had client-facing jobs, and so even though so I was able to articulate through the interview process why that motivated me, and so I think but I think that is the thing that we kind of consistently look for, just reasons and being able to articulate in a kind of concise and strong way why that kind of role motivates you. I think trying to get that under your belt. I know kind of the managers in my team will look at people who have had a bit of experience, and that experience does not need to be these kind of lofty internships necessarily, although they are impressive, of course. It is just having that experience to be able to back up your motivations for wanting to work at Bloomberg.
Excellent. Fantastic advice. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Emma. To the CAS community, if you're interested in joining Bloomberg, you've got great advice there. Make sure you get a little bit of experience, and make sure you use your career advisors in the CAS Careers team to help you with your interview prep, so that you're telling great stories when you're hitting a Bloomberg interview. This is the end of this series of or this interview of the Curious Careers series. So until we talk again, stay curious. Thanks a lot. Bye.